Thank you very much. Welcome to the second Global Summit on Religion, Peace and Security. The theme is building bridges, fostering inclusivity and countering hate speech to enhance the protection of religious minorities, refugees and migrants. We are all indebted to the United Nations Office on Genocide Prevention and the Responsibility to Protect, and the International Association for the Defense of Religious Liberty for their enormous efforts to co-host and to convene us together and to present us with an excellent program. It is by now a tradition that these two offices have established to convene the Global Summit on Religion, Peace and Security. Events around us today make it utterly unnecessary to list why the confluence of religion, peace and security is more timely than it has ever been in centuries. Nevertheless, we have an opportunity to highlight not the challenges only, but we will have an opportunity to discuss together the best means of fostering inclusivity and countering hate speech. We have a very distinguished panel with us this morning in this opening ceremony, this afternoon rather, in this opening ceremony. And I'd like to take the opportunity to ask our distinguished His Excellency Mr. Adama DIENG, the United Nations Under-Secretary General and Special Advisor on the Prevention of Genocide. It is a little known fact, but it should be much better known, that Mr. DIENG has been a champion of multi-religious collaboration across the United Nations system for many years, and his office has pioneered a methodology for engagement with religious actors that has resulted in actual concrete agreement and in the form of a plan of action, as well as a number of concrete programmatic rollouts. So we are all indebted to the guru of much of the work on religious engagement in the United Nations. Mr. DIENG, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Aziza. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to open the second Global Summit on Religion, Peace and Development. I would like to start by extending my gratitude to the International Association for Religious Liberty for taking the initiative to organize this meeting. I have known its Secretary General, Liviu OLTEANU, for many years, and I should say that this Global Summit is the result of our good friendship and collaboration. Liviu didn't spare no effort to make sure that this summit take place, and I'm extremely grateful for your initiative. I cannot also ignore to thank my colleague Muller, who is the Director General of the UN office here in Geneva, who from day one lended his support also to the hosting of this meeting. I cannot but say thank you to all of you who have co-sponsored this event, including the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Adventist Development and Relief Agency, and the International Institute for Religious Freedom, which have made this meeting possible by providing the necessary resources. In addition, I would like to thank all meeting participants, in particular those who travel from far, for finding the time to partake in this important event. Excellencies, distinguished guests, the Global Summit on Religion, Peace and Security provides a unique opportunity to discuss the key role of religion in peace and security issues. It identifies and builds upon issues which are at the core of international politics and aims at developing policies which can have direct and positive impacts in the fields of peace, security, human rights, and development, the three pillars of the United Nations. The first edition of the Global Summit took place here in November 2016. It focused on the links between freedom of religion and belief on the one hand and prevention of violence on the other. It highlighted the importance of strengthening partnership by introducing the concept of the Dialogue 5. This concept alludes to the collaboration of academics, civil society representatives, diplomats, politicians, religious leaders to advance religious freedom and prevent violence globally. It resulted in the recommendation and commitment to develop a plan of action for implementation by all Dialogue 5 actors. The second Global Summit builds upon the foundations of that commitment. Indeed, during the next days, we will discuss in detail how the Dialogue 5 partnership can help build bridges, foster inclusivity, and counter hate speech to enhance the protection of religious minorities, refugees, and migrants. We will also work together to develop a plan of action that contains specific actions to be taken by whom and within a set time frame. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, building bridges in polarized societies, fostering inclusivity, and countering hate speech to enhance the protection of those who are or are perceived to be different is a topic which is at the core of my mandate and of the work of the United Nations. The United Nations Secretary General has expressed his concern in various occasions at the unequivocal growth of xenophobia, racism, and intolerance, as well as at the threat these phenomena represent for democratic values, social stability, and peace. I fully echo these concerns. I have also warned against a revival of ultra-nationalist groups and parties which legitimize violation by framing all those who are perceived to be different as a threat to their culture and identity. These groups are spreading their incendiary language into mainstream political discourse. We see this in too many countries. We need to collectively and actively stop these dynamics and counter them with messages of openness and inclusion. I'm firmly convinced that ultranationalism constitutes a profound threat to the values of equality, pluralism, and peaceful coexistence. We have seen this recently in the attacks against a synagogue in Pittsburgh in the United States and against 2 mosques in Christchurch in New Zealand. These attacks resulted in scores of innocent people being killed. We also see the threat of ultranationalism in many European countries, where some political parties scapegoat the other to justify political and economic grievances. Distinguished friends, the United Nations is taking measures to address hate speech trends that are eroding shared values and international norms and standards. Indeed, at the United Nations, we believe that silence is not acceptable, because failing to speak out can signal indifference even as the situation escalates and the vulnerable become victims. We also believe that efforts to address hate speech will also contribute to advance progress across a wide range of priorities in the United Nations agenda, including preventing conflict, atrocity crimes, and violent extremism, ending violence against women, mitigating the risk of other serious violations of human rights, and promoting peaceful, inclusive, and just societies, which, as you know, is at the core of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. As many of you know, last January, UN Secretary General asked me to develop a United Nations system-wide strategy and plan of action to address hate speech. To this end, I convened an interagency working group, and we collectively developed this strategy and plan of action. My office has just concluded this effort, and I have no doubt that this document will enhance United Nations efforts to address root causes and drivers of hate speech. It will also enable our collective responses to hate speech so that we can mitigate its impact on society, and this in full respect with international human rights norms and standards. Dear friends, it is my hope that this second Global Summit on Religion, Peace and Security will help produce practical recommendations on how we can enhance our partnership to effectively build bridges in polarized societies, foster inclusivity, and counter hate speech. This partnership is necessary, it is urgent, if we are serious about protecting the rights of each individual without discrimination, giving hope to the hopeless, and leaving no one behind. And I will stop here and look forward to our constructive discussions during the next 3 days. I thank you.
Your Excellency, thank you very much indeed for your speech. Thank you for highlighting the dangers of ultranationalism in today's world. Thank you for noting that silence is no longer acceptable and never was, and particularly for those of us in the United Nations broader family. And thank you for highlighting the role of partnerships as absolutely necessary and urgent. This is a very good segue to Dr. Liviu OLTEANU, the Secretary General of the International Association for the Defense of Religious Liberty. Again, another fact that many of you may not know is, and His Excellency Mr. DIENG pointed it, but I don't believe that Dr. OLTEANU had any sleep for the last 5 months. He has been all out to put this together, and we're deeply grateful. I also know that the Dialogue +5, talking about the criticality of partnerships, Dialogue +5 is an initiative that Dr. OLTEANU himself has pioneered and has been urging and supporting many of us to come together to realize. Dr. OLTEANU, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Your Excellencies, Your Eminences, the Under-Secretary General of the United Nations, Dr. Adama DIENG, if I can say my good friend and brother, Your Excellency, Director General of the United Nations, Dr. Michael Muller, distinguished delegates and the guests. Now, when we start the Worldwide Summit on Region, Peace and Security, I would like to propose you, as did in the beginning Dr. Azakaram, one moment of silence, but not only for prayer or for meditation. Many people lost their life in Pittsburgh as Jews, which are my brother and sister in humanity. Others lost their lives, Muslims, and they are my brothers and sisters in humanity, and the Christians recently in Sri Lanka. And we cannot accept that more. For that, what happened, I invite you to get one moment, to stand up for one moment of silence in behalf of them. Thank you. Excellencies, after any violence and terrorist outrage, the first question that always we have to ask is, could the violence and the carnage have been prevented? What we can do to foster peace and security? One thing we are doing is organizing this global summit on region, peace and security together with the office of Dr. Adama DIENG, because we're convinced that his mandate regarding the protection and the prevention of genocide is our duty today. We underline in the concept note of this global summit that is organized by us together, the Dialogue 5 as have been underlined, diplomats, politicians, religious leaders, academics, civil society representatives, where I include media and NGOs, they have to work together more than ever. In this context, the main objective is to establish this international platform on region, peace and security. Of note, the platform on religion, peace and security also aims at supporting the 2030 Agenda of Sustainable Development Goals, expressly the goals 16 and 17, which called respectively to uphold peace, justice, and strong institutions, and revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development. There is no doubt that the achievement of these goals requires a better cooperation among different stakeholders and a partnership which needs to be built on the shared vision, which places the respect of fundamental principle and value at its core. But the mind is afraid of love, honor, and dignity, all that comes from the heart. And of course, the mind doesn't know how to forgive. We forgot nothing. We judge the person next to us. We don't forgive the words he said, the other, the intention he had. We don't forgive. The mind knows it may lose the game, so it seals the people's hearts. Freedom comes from wisdom. I understand the word by understanding myself, first of all. If I understand myself, I will understand you. And love ensures from this understanding Absurdly, this is exactly the missing factor, the strongest power in the world. Since it is missing, we all escape to the outside among the majority, and we are lost in the confusion because we don't understand ourselves. Control ensures from fear, and you bring about fear when you create an enemy. If there is no fear, there is no control. One of my friends wrote 2 days before something very interesting. We mark this dreadful anniversary regarding what happened in Rwanda. We must commit ourselves to being alert to the ever-present danger posed by evil forces that enter into a society conscience like a thief in the night. The message crept in our national conscience very slowly. It did not happen all at once. We did not wake up one morning to hear it pouring out of the radio at full strength. It started with a sneering comment, the casual use of the term cock-crocked, the almost humorous suggestion that Tutsis should be airmailed back in Ethiopia. That happened in that time, but we need to never forget that they are brothers and sisters, and we need to work together for never happen again what happened in Rwanda. In the same way, the cultivating hatred involves small degrading daily abuses. The noble task of upholding human rights and strengthening respect for all people in a work that should imbue everything we do. If we cannot win the battle for a future of greater dignity, justice and rights for all people, then we will have lost the future, regardless of whatever technological, scientific or economic heights we may attain. More than ever, all of us can and have to be the ambassador of goodwill for liberty, hope and peace for every human being. The world today is full of egos, hate and violence because there are people in confusion with the perception they have on their own person versus the other. The ambassadors that are required for our times, and we can be all ambassadors, are those who think in the context of time, speak out and take attitude for the other, the neighbor. We must clarify our own identity and direction from the perspective of our common roots, that is the dignity. Let's ask the people to think about whether they remember who they are before being what their government or religion or the culture have told them to become. The cause of problem of humankind resides in people's mind on who is my neighbor. Quoting some scholar, he said, the right question to ask according to Jesus is not who is my neighbor or who do I like to have as my neighbor, but to whom am I a neighbor? Are truly free the people who understand the question and get correct answer. And this understanding and commitment guides the world to freedom, security, development and peace. True freedom and security comes with wisdom and start in mind. And I would like to conclude regarding what I wrote in the magazine you get. More than ever, the world needs a special focus of all actors in the prevention of global crises and challenges. The key to combat discrimination, hate speech, and the violence lies in education that influence the change the mindset by public awareness and high-level campaign, as is the second Global Summit, starting by training the trainers, fostering dialogue and understanding different culture and religion. On the issue of human rights, development and peace, nothing of a political nature happened by accident. Let's do these days something more to contribute for the peace, for the security, for our house, which is the United Nations, for all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. OLTEANU. I think you have spoken from the heart. Thank you for highlighting the gradual nature of the encroachment of hate and violence, but also for highlighting how we can try to, and insisting that we can indeed work together among others to answer the question, to whom am I a neighbor, but also to rebuild and strengthen this home of all of us, the United Nations. Dr. OLTEANU, thank you again for that. We have the distinct privilege and pleasure of introducing the next speaker, who is Mr. Michael Muller, the Director General of the United Nations Office in Geneva. One thing that you may not know that is that Mr. Muller is a highly decorated, so to speak, civil servant in the United Nations system. He has received a recognition for his efforts to deepen the public understanding of the vital role of the United Nations and its partners in Geneva, and received a series of prizes from the city of Geneva, the Union Suisse des Attachés de Presse, and most recently, the Fondation pour Genève. We are very proud and pleased to have you with us, Mr. Muller. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to the Palais des Nations. It's a great pleasure to be with you for the second Global Summit on Religion, Peace and Security, and I want to thank everyone involved in bringing us together today. Testament to the ambition and the attraction of this summit, we have 7 speakers in the opening alone. So I will be brief and share with you just one point that I see as key in our reflection on how to counter hate speech and protect religious minorities, refugees and migrants. And that point has to do with the language we use. Opening up your average newspaper, you might well read a sentence that goes like this: swarms of illegal aliens are invading our countries like a tsunami, while our governments struggle to find a solution to the crisis. And there are so many problems with that sentence. Talking about tsunamis portrays migration as if it were a natural disaster. Talking about an invasion suggests bad intentions and conjures up images of hostile armies. Talking about swarms of illegals dehumanizes migrants. And talking about a solution implies that there is a problem. None of which is true. Migration is an essential part of human existence, a fact of life, and most importantly, a positive phenomenon. Diversity equals richness. Yet the language we use is loaded and biased. Just ask yourself why a European scientist working in Africa is called an expat, while an African academic teaching in Europe is an immigrant. Language can distort our frame of reference, and its careless use paves the way for language that does much worse. And so today we see hate speech spreading like wildfire through social media into the mainstream. It is a menace to our values, to social stability, to peace itself. And such hate speech is in turn the breeding ground for unfathomable evil. The recent horrendous events in New Zealand and Sri Lanka are but the most awful extreme and recent extreme of the ignorance and intolerance that we see every day. The bigotry that says another person is less than my equal, less than human. The capacity for such evil resides in all our societies, but so too do the qualities of understanding, of kindness, justice and reconciliation. To work together towards building bridges and fostering inclusivity is what brought us together today. And it is why the partnership between faith-based organizations and the United Nations is so important. Because at the heart of our actions, we are basing ourselves on the same universal values: to be merciful, to be tolerant, to love thy neighbor. I wish you all much success in your discussions over the coming days, and I look forward to learning about what plans of action emerge from your talks. Thank you very much for being here.
Your Excellency, Mr. Muller, thank you very much indeed for keeping us in very good stead in terms of how language can be a tool of enablement, but also a tool for disablement of our collective communities. Thank you very much indeed for those wise words. I understand that we now have the privilege of hearing and listening from a video speech presented by Her Excellency Ms. Michelle Bachelet, the Undersecretary General of and UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. Am I correct in understanding that it's now time for the video speech? Yes, great.
Hello everyone, I welcome this gathering. Human rights are closely connected to religion, security and peace. Religious leaders play a crucial role in either defending human rights, peace and security, or, unfortunately, in undermining them. Supporting the positive contributions of faith-based actors is crucial, as is preventing the exploitation of religious faith as a tool in conflict, or as interpreted to deny people's rights. Human rights and faith can be mutually supportive. Indeed, many people of faith have worked at the heart of the human rights movement, precisely because of their deep attachment to respect for human dignity, human equality, and justice. I am convinced that faith-based actors can promote trust and respect between communities. And I am committed to assisting government, religious authorities, and civil society actors to work jointly to uphold human dignity and equality for all. In recent years, my office has been working with faith-based actors to conceive the Faith for Rights framework. Its 18 commitments reach out to people of different religions and beliefs in all regions of the world to promote a common, action-oriented platform. The Faith for Rights framework includes a commitment not to tolerate exclusionary interpretations which instrumentalize religions, belief, or their followers for electoral purposes or political gains. In this context, it is vital to protect religious minorities, refugees, and migrants, particularly where they have been targeted by incitement to hatred and violence. We look forward to seeing the Faith for Rights framework translated into practical outreach tools and capacity building programs. Already it has been picked up by a number of communities. For example, the 18 commitments have been translated into Greek and Turkish in the context of the religious track of the Cyprus peace process, to be used in human rights education projects across the island. Respect for human rights shapes societies that are more peaceful, more resilient, more sustainably developed, more successful across a whole range of metrics. School by school and town by town, local success stories can inspire positive changes elsewhere in the world. We hope the Faith for Rights framework will also inspire interdisciplinary research on questions related to faith and rights. Deeper exploration of the ethical and spiritual foundations provided by religions and beliefs can help to debunk the myth that human rights are solely Western values. On the contrary, the human rights agenda is rooted in cultures across the world. Respect for human life and human dignity, well-being and justice are common to us all. Faith can indeed stand up for rights so that both enhance each other. As the Faith for Rights framework proclaims, we are resolved to challenge the manipulation of religion in both politics and conflicts. We intend to be a balancing, united voice of solidarity, reason, compassion, moderation, enlightenment, and corresponding collective action. I look forward to your progress towards these goals. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. We've had a very important intervention from the High Commissioner for Human Rights to highlight a critical initiative that her office has been championing thanks to the leadership of Dr. Ibrahim Salama and Mr. Michael Wiener, who are with us here today, the Faith for Rights initiative, which we would like to particularly underline as one of the leading lights of this kind of work within the UN system, and which has benefited hugely also from Mr. Adama Dieng's intervention and wisdom. Ladies and gentlemen, I would now have great pleasure of introducing Her Excellency Amo Aziza BAROUD. She's the Ambassador of Chad to the European Union, United Kingdom, and Benelux. And as if that's not enough, she is also an ardent human rights advocate and women's rights representative, whom we're all very pleased to have amongst us today. Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Thank you, my dear sister Aziza. Ladies and gentlemen and distinguished delegates, allow me to pay tribute to the organizers of this summit, and particularly Liviu, Adama, Mr. Muller, and all the different hands who make that event possible today. Our world is evaluating, and around us, despite the efforts here and there we are making, we witness exactions on minorities, religious, ethnics, and more migrants and displaced populations. The heavy and long procedures that go with the international laws, the obligation to protect are really calling us to react. We must find new paradigm and reinforce the Dialogue 5 actors to be able to evaluate towards faster and more efficient mechanism who put life, who put the right for life, the right for human dignity in the center of the debate. No need to go back to the long list of horrors around us. All around the planet, we are assisting into increasing of cases which are different with multiples, which are different and multiples, but the common point is the denying of humanity to the others, massacres, tortures of women, children, men, by other men, and the unique crime of those is just to be different in the way of being, to be different in the way of believing, and to be different just in the way of thinking. What kind of world are we contributing to develop? Just since the last 2 months, and since our last meeting here in this room, but the last 2 months, I can have those examples: the mosque in New Zealand, the church in Sri Lanka, the synagogue in California. And more than that, we have also, in another hand, the Yazidis, the Rohingyas, and we must add now also a threat around the Fulani people, this group who is living in the center and the Sahel area of Africa. If there is no any mobilization at the dimension of the dramas that we are living, those people from the Fulani will going to join the Yazidis and the Rohingyas. The climatic change are contributing to some pressures on the access to water, on the access to the food for the cattle, and there are just few examples, and we don't have the right to leave as heritage to our children and grandchildren this kind of situation. The migration now is becoming another threat, and I don't want to go back to what Mr. Muller said. He just summarized all. And what I could say now is just to make that remark that nobody will leave his house, will leave his country if he has a chance to have that house and that country, and to have this minimum of security, to access to social services and few justice. What I call here as a few services is unfortunately a real luxury in certain areas, and many of us here in this room, we know it. So what are we doing to find solutions? And we have those conferences, and we are here together, and we are happy to meet and certainly debate. But what is next? What could we say as results? There are some results. There are some few nice histories here and there. But what could we put on the table right now and here around these issues? In my job, I have I faced a situation last year where a very young boy, 20 years old, I call his Shams, which is son. I called him, I gave him that name. I don't know why, but he has his own name, and I didn't want to even to pronounce his name, because this young boy was a migrant in Holland, Netherlands, and he killed himself the day he realized that finally he will be took back to his country, and his country was just Chad. And he was born and lived in Libya, and he didn't know anything about Chad, and the people wanted to take him back to Chad, and he killed himself. I called him Shams. I don't know why, but This kind of situation make you angry. This kind of situation call you to react. Some countries like Libya today, maybe somehow Sudan, Saudi Arabia, we have population living there for generations, but today they are, because of certain reason, they have to leave. But what is very hard is what all those big countries, all those big organizations are doing or are able to do to make it easy for those population, to make it easy for those young people which they don't have nowhere to go. He's born Chadian, but he's born and raised in Libya, and he killed himself just because he didn't want to go back to a country that he didn't know. Thank you very much for your attention. And welcome to the Sheikh.
Your Excellency, thank you very much indeed. Indeed, we would like to welcome our dear Sheikh Abdullah bin BAYYAH, who has been a spiritual father for many of us in this work, and somebody whom we're very delighted indeed to have with us on this panel, and who brings many blessings with him. So we're very pleased to have him. We will shortly pass the floor, but for the time being, I would just want to reiterate my thanks to Her Excellency Ammo Aziza BAROUD. Thank you for the call to action and for reminding us of the dehumanization of difference that is taking place and the intersectionality of all of this with climate change and the role of our service provision in order to ensure that every human being has their dignity by observing their basic needs. Once again, thank you very much, Your Excellency. I now take the opportunity to call upon Ms. Katarzyna Kardabkhadze, the First Deputy Director of the Office of Security and Cooperation, Office of Democratic Institutions and Human Rights. Ms. Katarzyna, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and let me join, first of all, the previous speakers in thanking all those who worked very hard for months and didn't sleep to prepare the summit. I represent the Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights of the OSCE, but today I don't want to talk about the work of our office. Instead, I would like to build on what Liviu said and propose that we frame our discussion around the concepts of human solidarity, responsible leadership, and true commitments. At the core of human solidarity, there is courage, empathy, and compassion. And without human solidarity, we will not survive. In fact, without human solidarity, I would not be speaking here today. The story of my family is one of many stories of migrant, refugee, and minority groups that were pushed around by man-made calamities. My great-grandfathers, landowners in Ukraine, moved east to escape the Holodomor. My grandparents were born in Berlin when Poland did not exist on the map, and moved west and moved north in search of safety, nationality, and home. They wouldn't be able to make these very difficult journeys if not for human solidarity of ordinary people who helped them along the way. And I'm sure many of you here could share similar stories, past or present. We live in the time of the greatest human mobility in recorded history. And we see millions of ordinary citizens, students, volunteers, members of NGOs and religious or belief communities, and others from all walks of life who step in every day to help migrant, refugees, and others who suffer. Their courageous, compassionate actions, no matter how small, send powerful messages of human solidarity. And the power of these people is greater than we tend to believe. There is a recent historical research that shows that if only 3.5% of the population unite behind a peaceful demand for change, the social avalanche becomes unstoppable. But we also need responsible leadership, and responsible leadership is something in very short supply in today's world. There was a survey by the World Economic Forum, the survey on the global agenda conducted before Davos, where 86%, imagine, 86% of people said that one of the largest crises in the world today is the crisis of leadership. And they assessed the governmental and religious institutions and their confidence in them among the lowest. Why could that be? Perhaps because in recent years, those institutions have largely failed to address any major global issue. We speak a lot about problems, but we stop short of promising to lead the way to solve these problems. When people look at our institutions, they often see only careless leadership, bureaucracy and political rituals, and little progress. Responsible leaders the world needs today are not those who promise to build the greatest wall at their border. They are not those who claim that refugees carry dangerous parasites. They are not those who say that protecting some values justifies hateful and violent words and acts against those whose values are different. And not those who are training us with their toxic language and policies to submit to fear and abandon hope. But responsible leaders we need today are not those who witness all this, yet choose not to see, not to hear, not to speak, and not to act. In the world that is divided by divisions and hate, silence and inaction equal complicity. The participants of the global survey told us what kind of leadership we need today to win back people's confidence. We need leaders with a global, diverse perspective. We need leaders who prioritize social justice and well-being, those who trust empirical data to create long-term visions and actionable plans. Leaders who have courage and morality and who can remain positive in the face of adversity. Leaders with empathy and compassion and with a strong commitment to the future of humanity. The word commitment is something the OSCE is built upon. The concept of commitments, political commitments made by its 57 participating states, are guiding the work of our office. And they use all the right words on the importance of peace, the need for inclusion, the right to be protected, and the responsibility to protect. But what those in power seem to have forgotten is that commitment is not just about saying the right words. Abraham Lincoln said that a commitment is what transforms a promise into reality. In other words, it means being dedicated to take action to bring about change. And the important part of this sentence is dedication to take action. So as we begin this summit, and we hope to find ways to enhance the protection of religious minorities, refugees and migrants in our polarized world, let us keep these three thoughts at the center of our discussions. We cannot allow ourselves to submit to fear. Let's find strength in the human solidarity of ordinary people who choose every day to stand together with those who suffer, and let's redirect our resources to support and unite those people so their message of hope becomes louder than voices of hate. We can no longer afford the leadership vacuum. Let us prioritize in our proposed plans a massive investment in finding, growing and promoting responsible leaders we need today. We no longer have time to make empty promises. Let's make sure that the commitments we make are real, not just on paper, and that we are truly dedicated and ready to act on them. Thank you very much.
Ms. Katarzyna Hardabchadze, thank you very much indeed for that candid, heartfelt and very wise series of calls to action, and for highlighting and mentioning a few things that as yet we had not heard but which are critical to this initiative and endeavor: human solidarity, responsible leadership, empathy and hope. Thank you very much indeed for your call. It now gives me great pleasure to introduce His Excellency Dr. Abdulaziz Al-Muzaini. He is the Director of the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, Geneva Liaison Office. Dr. Al-Muzaini, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I wish to thank the International Association for the Defense of Religious Liberty and the United Nations Office on Genocide Prevention and the Responsibility to Protect for having led the organization of this second Global Summit on Religion, Peace and Security. There are some 258 million migrants worldwide. Millions of women and men are leaving their homes, seeking new opportunities for work or education. Others are on the move because they have no choice but to flee war and persecution or to escape the vicious circles of poverty, food insecurity, and environmental degradation. Evidence overwhelmingly shows that migrants generate economic, social, and cultural benefits for all societies. And unfortunately, with the rise of border-intolerant discourse, hostility towards migrants is growing around the world. Today, we are indeed living in times of rapid and turbulent change that calls for new ways of defending rights, new articulations of rights, and to never stop pushing forward the frontiers of dignity. The adoption last December of the Global Compact on Refugees and for safe, orderly, and regular migration sends a strong message about the resolve of United Nations member states to address this issue in its global dimensions and to work together for a holistic and human rights-based global migration governance. The centrality of the protection of human rights in UNESCO's history and its mandate. The founders of UNESCO sought to define the conditions for a finally lasting peace, one that would not only be based on the often precarious agreements between states, but on the solid foundation of the dignity of the person, on the intellectual and moral solidarity of humanity, and on the mutual recognition of rights common to all peoples. It is also this political vision of human rights as the basis for any lasting peace that can be read from the very first words of the 1948 Universal Declaration. It is in this spirit that UNESCO is today firmly committed to supporting the efforts of the member states to transform the commitments of the Global Compact into reality through all its field of competences. The 2030 Agenda promises to leave no one behind. This must include every migrant. Protecting their rights and dignity means responding to humanitarian needs and advancing sustainable development. Fundamentally, this is about defending our common humanity through solidarity in action. Education is an important first response. Last year, UNESCO's Global Education Monitoring Report presented new recommendations for how to fully integrate migrants, refugees, and displaced persons into education systems. UNESCO also develops educational responses to humanitarian crises, facilitates cross-border recognition of qualification, and supports global citizenship education as a tool for international solidarity. UNESCO is acting to promote access to quality education for refugees by facilitating recognition of education diplomas and qualifications. We are bolstering the capacities of journalists to address negative narratives and bring the stories of migrants to the fore. Through our international coalition of inclusive and sustainable cities, a more than 500-strong global platform tasked with facilitating dialogue, sharing, and joint action, we strive to ensure the inclusion of migrants and refugees in communities by supporting local authorities to design welcoming policies and services. Through the Welcoming Cities for Refugees and Migrants project implemented in 2016-2018 and the regular reporting to ICCAR, UNESCO was able to identify some promising practices and approaches that enhance inclusion and of the populations. For example, Helsingborg in Sweden is developing a plan for equal opportunities in order to combat all forms of discrimination and to promote equal opportunities. The city of Geneva organizes every March, in partnership with the Canton of Geneva and civil society organizations, the International Week of Actions Against Racism, to decreasing stereotypes and prejudices, particularly against arriving refugees. Today, more than ever, we need initiatives that create mutual understanding and solidarity between different peoples and cultures. Open dialogue and inclusive communication are fundamental to help communities reconcile the past and overcome stigmatization that hinders progress. To this end, intercultural dialogue, the open and respectful exchange of views between individuals and groups belonging to different cultures, leading to a deeper understanding of the general perception of others based on fundamental respect for human rights, is crucial in combating populism and exclusive nationalist ideologies. In this context, it can also encourage the cooperation and dynamism necessary to support the Global Compact. This global summit on religion, peace, and security is therefore a timely occasion to reiterate the importance for more concerted and efforts and concrete actions in this area. We need more, not less, genuine cooperation on this issue at all levels between governments, with civil society, and regional and international institutions. We need more coordination, solidarity, and effective multilateral organizations to face global challenges such as migration and displacement. Thank you to all for your presence and your commitment.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Abdulaziz Al-Muzaini. Thank you for highlighting the role of UNESCO in its multiple commitments and indeed an upholding for, not just within the United Nations, but for all of the different member states, the criticality of different kinds of interventions within and amongst governments, but also with different civil society actors, and for highlighting the value of the intercultural and interreligious work, and for also underlining the value of solidarity in this work. Where I come from, we often say khitamuhu misk, which usually means that the very best comes at the very end. And so we would like with these words to call upon we spoke about leadership and its criticality. We are deeply honored to have with us His Eminence Sheikh Abdullah bin BAYYAH, who is one of the leading lights within the Muslim world, and we're very pleased to have him with us here. Sheikh Abdullah bin BAYYAH is also the president of the Forum for Promoting Peace in Muslim Societies. Sheikhna, the floor is all yours. Tfaddal. I'd like to just let you all know that we do have translation into English on channel 2. Thank you.
الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه وعلى جميع إخوانه من النبيين والمرسلين. أيها السادة والسيدات، أيها المشاركون كل باسمه وجميل باسمه، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Permettez-moi d'abord de remercier l'Association internationale pour la défense de la liberté religieuse et le bureau du Conseil spécial pour la prévention du génocide et de la responsabilité de protéger pour l'invitation à cette importante conférence. Mon cher frère, Adama, je vous remercie. Permettez-moi de parler ma langue, l'arabe. إننا نجتمع اليوم للتفكير في التحديات التي تواجه حضارتنا الإنسانية المريضة، وهي تحديات يفرض إلحاحها وخطرها على أطباء الحضارة من الفلاسفة ورجال الدين وأصحاب الفكر المبادرة إلى الربط الدائم بين التفكير والفعل في آن واحد، réflexion et action en même temps. كل يوم تستيقظ البشرية على أنباء جريمة نكراء جديدة. بالأمس القريب شهد العالم مجزرة وحشية استهدفت مسجد النور في نيوزيلندا، ثم تجددت الفجيعة بسلسلة تفجيرات شنيعة استهدفت دور العبادة في سريلانكا. فقبل أشهر كان الدور على معابد يهودية في بنسلفانيا في الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية ليتلوها العمل المدان على الكنيس اليهودي في كاليفورنيا يوم أمس. إنه الإرهاب العبثي يكشف في كل مرة عن حقيقته الهمجية تحت مسميات مختلفة، تارة كراهية الإسلام، وتارة أخرى كراهية المسيحيين، وأحيانا باسم معاداة اليهود. كل العائلة الإبراهيمية في ذلك سواء، ولكن الحقيقة التي تختفي وراء ذلك وتوحد جميع الإرهابيين هي كراهية الإنسان واستغلال الأديان. أيها السادة، إن الإرهاب يدعونا إلى اليأس من بعضنا البعض وتجاهل المشتركات الكثيرة التي تجمعنا كعائلة بشرية من قيم الفضيلة والأخوة. إنه يدعونا إلى تنازع البقاء الذي يؤدي إلى الفناء، وإن أقوى ما نواجهه به أن نبقي جذوة الأمل حية في القلوب، وأن لا ندع مرض اليأس العضال يستولي على النفوس، وأن نعي أننا مثل ركاب السفينة تجمعنا وحدة المصير والمسار، فلا نجاة لبعضنا إلا بنجاة الجميع. أعرف أنه فيما يخص الهجرة أن صبر أوروبا يختبر اليوم أمام السفن التي تمخر البحار تحمل المئات من الجياع الذين طردتهم الحروب الغبية والإرهاب المجنون. بروح التسامح التي تتجاوز منطق الاعتراف إلى أفق التعارف، تستقبل الإنسانية غدا مشرقا يفتح فيه بعضنا لبعض حضنه، ليرى كل واحد في الآخر أخا له، نظيرا له في الخلق وشريكا له في الوطن، فلا يضيق به صدرا ولا أرضا. وكما قال الشاعر العربي: لعمرك ما ضاقت بلاد بأهلها ولكن أخلاق الرجال تضيق. إن واجبنا أن نحافظ على هذه الروح، على روح التسامح المفعم بالأمل والإيمان، حتى في أحلك الأزمات وأحلك الظروف، وتنامي حركات تبني فكرها على فرض التناقض بينها وبين الغير، وتدعو إلى المفاصلات الدينية وصدام الحضارات، وكذلك بروز الخطابات الإقصائية ذات النبرة العالية، حيث لم تزل غالبية والتعابير الساخطة. كل هذا المشهد المتغير الحالك لا يمكن أن ينسينا الجانب المضيء، حيث لم تزل غالبية البشرية شرقا وغربا تؤمن بإمكانية العيش المشترك وتتصدى لخطاب العنف والكراهية. سيداتي سادتي أيها الحضور، لقد كانت دولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة سباقة إلى تبني رؤية حضارية قائمة على قيم السماحة والتسامح، تقدم المقاربات الحية والمبادرات القوية في هذا الصدد على مختلف الصعود وفي المحافل الدولية والإقليمية بجسارة وكفاءة. وثقة الأخوة الإنسانية التي وقعت في أبو ظبي شاهد على هذه الجهود المتميزة. ومن أبو ظبي انطلقت دروب السلام التي اختطها منتدى تعزيز السلم في المجتمعات المسلمة، حيث دعا منذ تأسيسه إلى رفض كل اضطهاد يوجه إلى أقلية دينية أو عرقية أو ثقافية، ونبذ استغلال الدين في هذه الأعمال الشنيعة التي لا يبررها عقل أو يقولها دين. وفي هذا السياق عقدنا في مدينة مراكش في 25 يناير 2016 مؤتمر حقوق الأقليات الدينية في المجتمعات المسلمة، الإطار الشرعي والدعوة إلى المبادرات، بمشاركة عدد كبير من علماء المسلمين وبحضور شهود من الديانات الأخرى ومن الأقليات المعنية. صدر عن المؤتمر إعلان مراكش التاريخي لحقوق الأقليات باتفاق ومصادقة جميع الحضور من العلماء المسلمين وبمباركة القيادات الدينية من غير المسلمين الذين كانوا شهودا، ومن بينهم ممثلون من الأقباط واليزيديين والصابئة المندانيين والنصارى الأشوريين وغيرهم. هذا المؤتمر الذي لقي قبولا متجاوبا في العالم وتبنته منظمة مؤتمر التعاون الإسلامي باجتماعها في اسطنبول على مستوى رؤساء الدول. حرص المؤتمر أن يبين بقوة أن اضطهاد الأقليات الدينية وكافة أشكال العدوان التي يقترفها الإرهابيون مخالفة لقيم الإسلام الذي أقر الأقليات الدينية حقوقها الدينية والثقافية والسياسية، في وقت لم تكن البشرية قد عرفت مثل هذا النوع من التسامح الموثق بصحيفة المدينة من قبل خاتم النبيين صلى الله عليه وسلم. وقد استهدفنا المصالحة بين الهوية الدينية والهوية الوطنية، فنرى أن قوة الانتماء إلى الهوية الدينية تؤدي إلى انهيار روح المواطنة، بل نرى أن الانتماء الديني قد يمثل حافزاً لتجسيد المواطنة وتحييد سلبيات تأثير عامل الاختلاف الديني عليها. إن أهم مقومين من مقومات المواطنة في إعلان مراكش هما مقوم المساواة في الواجبات والحقوق المتساوية، ومقوم الاعتراف بالتعددية وإقرار الحرية الدينية، حيث جاء في المد الثاني من الإعلان في سياق التذكير بالمبادئ الكلية والقيم الجامعة التي جاء بها الإسلام إن تكريم الإنسان اقتضى منحه حرية الاختيار لا إكراه في الدين، ولو شاء ربك لآمن من في الأرض كلهم جميعا أفأنت تكره الناس حتى يكونوا مؤمنين. وجاء في البند الثالث عشر في سياق ذكر الأسس المرجعية للمواطنة المتضمنة في صحيفة المدينة ما نصه: إن السياق الحضاري المعاصر يتوافق مع وثيقة المدينة لأنها تقدم للمسلمين الأساس المرجعي المبدئي للمواطنة. إنها صيغة مواطنة تعاقدية ودستور عادل لمجتمع تعددي أعراقا وديانة ولغة متضامن يتمتع أفراده بنفس الحقوق ويتحملون نفس الواجبات وينتمون رغم اختلافهم إلى أمة واحدة. إن من مكامن القوة فيها التصور الذي أبرزه إعلان مراكش هو الربط الواصب الدائم بين المواطنة وإطارها الناظم والمتمثل في مقصد السلم، فلا سبيل إلى تحقيق المواطنة الحاضنة للتنوع إلا من خلال استراتيجية السلم. تلك هي المقاربة التي نعتقد نجاعتها والتي بها ترتقي المواطنة إلى المؤاخاة وتنتقل من الوجود المشتركة إلى الوجدان المتشارك. ختاما أشكركم على استماعكم وأتمنى لمؤتمر النجاح والتوفيق، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Sheikh Abdullah bin BAYYAH, thank you very much indeed for highlighting for us the value of the mercy of the faith of Islam and pinpointing and reminding us of the Marrakesh Declaration initiative, which indeed was very foundational to much of the discussion and the praxis around religious minorities in Muslim majority countries. And thank you for bringing up the value of religious identity to citizenship and pluralism in today's world, and as a key towards developing a shared spirit, which is precisely what is needed in order to help build bridges, foster inclusivity, and counter hate speech. Sheikh bin BAYYAH, we are indebted to you. Ladies and gentlemen, I think you've heard some excellent exposés which have placed us very firmly on the road to being able to assess further what this particular confluence of interest around this issue of religion, peace, and security will lead us to. We have heard about we started by speaking about how silence is not acceptable and is in fact complicity. We went to looking at how the dehumanization of migrants can lead to further atrocities and can in and of itself be a key to disaster, but how human solidarity, responsible leadership, empathy, hope, and the dignity of serving our fellow human beings, migrants or not, but also serving our fellow human beings in their own nations, such as to render it unnecessary for them to leave. Above all, the value and the criticality of human rights and the confluence of human rights with respective faith traditions, indeed the affirmation of both through the engagement with one another. And ultimately, we ended up speaking about the shared spirit that quintessentially needs to be built. We do not often hear these words in conferences which bring together discussions on migration and peace. We do hear these words when it comes to the discussions that come together per definition around interreligious and multi-religious engagement towards a stronger civil society affirming human rights. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking our speakers, distinguished speakers who have opened us to a very welcome shared spirit. Last but by no means least, please allow me to call upon our representatives from LDS Charities to please stand up. Also the colleagues from the Adventist Development and Relief Agency to please stand up. And the Brigham Young University Law Institute to please stand up. Ladies and gentlemen, you have heard us thank our responsible people, the United Nations Office for Genocide Prevention and the International Association for the Defense of Religious Liberty. You have not heard us officially thank, and I'd like to reiterate and to second what Mr. DIENG did, which is to thank these considerable people for their solidarity and partnership to help make this happen and to bring you all here today. Thank you.